What is up, guys? N64 Slayer here, and today I'm going to be reviewing the PowerA Battle Dragon controller. Now, this is one of three Battle Dragon controllers. There's the standard Battle Dragon, the Battle Dragon Pro, and the Battle Dragon Pro Max. The one I have here is the Battle Dragon Pro, and this is the equivalent to the OPS V2. This is a Chinese exclusive controller, and we are just now getting the release of the American version of the same controller, which would be the OPS V1, V2, and V3. So I have the Pro model here, and this has the special faceplate on it rather than the standard black one. This is a PC controller, and it has Bluetooth 2.4 gigahertz, and you can also use it wired. I'll show you the back of the box. So this is what the controller looks like. It has this really cool golden dragon on the front, and it has golden buttons as well. It comes with a 500 hertz dongle, a PowerA branded cable, it's non-braided, and these thumbstick caps that go on to your joysticks. So now we're going to move on to the buttons and features. So starting with the face buttons. The face buttons are pretty clicky, and they are semi-membrane. They are harder to press than a lot of mechanical switches that I've used, or buttons, I suppose. They have a decent amount of travel, quite a bit in fact. We're going to move on to the D-pad. It's kind of like a mushy D-pad, but like not too bad. The closest thing to this D-pad that I've used is the G5 Pro V2, or the G5 Pro, and it has these buttons as well. They're membrane. The home button is also membrane. As for the D-pad, I think it feels like a little weird. It also looks kind of weird. It has like a nice spot to rest your thumb in though. Moving on to the joysticks. So I start with the joystick clicks. They sound decent. The anti-friction rings are really good, surprisingly. Even though they're not metal joysticks. It's plastic on plastic. And here's the gimmick with these joysticks, so you can twist it and it will raise the height. So there's it up a little bit. You can see like the gap between now. Twist again, and now it's even taller. And then like twist it again to drop it all the way down. You can do this on both joysticks. So now they're both higher up, and you can maybe aim better. Control Freak compatibility. This is an Xbox Control Freak. I'm gonna put this on here right now. Goes on pretty easy. It's definitely not loose. You can still twist it with the Control Freak on. That's always nice. We're going to move on to the bumpers now. So the bumpers are very, very clicky and have a very light actuation. They're kind of mushy like the D-pad, even mushier though. And then we're going to move on to the triggers. So here's the standard pull, and they have quite a bit of resistance as compared to some other controllers that I've recently used. A lot of controllers from China usually have very light triggers. So seeing these are even heavier than like a standard Xbox controller. Moving on to the trigger stops. So in the software, these will change the dead zone on the trigger when you change the trigger stop mode. So these are on the second trigger stop. Here's the pull. I'll show you for reference. All the way down. Oh, second one stops it just a little bit. And then the full lock is this one. Pretty darn good. So those are the trigger stops. They're pretty good. They have a decent amount of tension to them so that you don't accidentally miss input. Next, we can talk about the rear buttons. These top ones feel hollow for sure. These ones not so much on the bottom. They feel nice. But I don't necessarily like the way that they're positioned, because when I hold the controller, I don't typically hold it like this. Like, I have to hold my thumb all the way up here just for it to be comfortable in this position. If I normally am playing, I'm gonna have my thumb over here, and that's gonna move my entire hand. So now I can only reach this one. I have to curl my fingers up here to reach the other ones. It's kind of annoying, but I mean, I'm sure if you use this controller enough, you'll get used to it. I did not get used to it at all in the little time I used this controller. It has stippled, it's like a rubberized stippling. It's kind of like what you'd see on the Match Night controllers, but I wouldn't say it feels better. I'd just say it feels different. I'd say it still makes your hand sweat a little bit. It also is on the rear buttons, as you can see. Here you can change the mode of the controller, so like Bluetooth, wired, and dongle. And then up here is the program button that you can use to remap the back buttons. And I didn't mention, but this is a turbo button, so if you click it and then you click another button, it will turbo that button. So yeah, that's pretty much it for the features on the controller itself. I think we're going to move on to the software now. So the first thing I'm going to show you how to do is how to download the software. So you're going to go here to your browser and you're going to search up PowerA.com. So once you go to their website, you will be greeted by their newest controller. In the top right, you will see, I will move the camera. In the top right, you will see change location. You are going to click that, and you are going to go over to Asia Pacific, and you are going to choose China. Now this will change everything to Mandarin. I'm just going to use my auto translate so you can read everything. So here we are. Now you're going to go to help and support. Here it will have the Battle Dragon controller app down at the way bottom. You can click this, it's going to download, show you it's downloading. It will say this, hey, this is basically malware, don't download it. And then you're just gonna hit keep anyway, and there you go, your malware is downloaded. So to start with, we're gonna test / calibrate our controller. So I'm gonna just go through all the buttons, press everything, make sure everything works. Now you can also move the joysticks around. So you can also hold the A button down and test the vibration motors using the left and right triggers. You can recalibrate as well. It's a pretty long process to recalibrate, so I'm gonna just do it quick. You can go to mapping. Here you can change the bindings or the rear buttons. You can change it to any button on the controller. Turbo function, you can go here, and these are a select few that you can choose from. These are the only buttons you can turbo. And if you have the button set to a turbo and a rear button, it will turbo it when you push the rear button and when you push the button. I did not save it. So here I have right trigger on, so there it is, turboing. You can go to joystick. Here you can adjust inner and outer dead zones. You can invert stuff. A curve that you can add to your joystick. There's default, precision, and aggressive. There's no custom curves. You can't change anything, just a couple presets. For triggers, you can adjust the dead zones individually for each trigger stop. So for there's no trigger pull, I have it set to 0 to 100, and on T1 and T2 I have it set to 1 to 0 or 0 to 1 dead zone. And then here you can also change the vibration of the controller. There is only one profile option, so you cannot have more than one profile at a time. You have to change everything every time. And then you can exit and then look at this again if you want. So that's pretty much it for the software. We're going to move on to the gamepad tester section. So I have gamepad tester pulled up. So we're going to do a circularity test. So I recalibrated the controller. Let's see if this is any better. This is not any better at all. So I'm getting about a 9 on the left and a not very good 11.5 on the right. Now it's still going up, but let's just ignore that. So as for the joysticks, they have quite a bit of drift. Like, I'm just going around trying to find hot spots of drift. There's 4.5 almost, 4 at least. I just recalibrated this too. This is getting to 5.5 on the right. Yeah, definitely not good. Definitely not good. Look how loose this is. I'm barely moving this at all. Do it on the left one as well. So these joystick modules are not very good at all. Unless you plan on playing on a 5 or higher dead zone, there's just simply no way I can recommend this controller or any PowerA controller that uses Hall effect joysticks. If you're fine with your potentiometer, those are probably still good. I haven't used the PowerA controller with potentiometer joysticks, but I've definitely used this controller with 5.5 out of the box stick drift. Like, look at that. That's terrible. That is so bad. I just calibrated this. Well, if that doesn't deter you from purchasing this controller, there's a few other things that may, but we're gonna move on to the pulling rate test. We're gonna see how good that is. Next, we are going to be doing a pulling rate test, and I'm just gonna go through the steps here. We're gonna do a test of 2 with the left joystick. This is wired mode. This is 1000 Hz wired, so we're just gonna rotate the joystick. And as you can see, we got 860 Hz, stability of 86%, minimal of 1 millisecond, average of 1.16, and a maximum of 3 milliseconds, jitter of 0.35. I'm going to do a couple tests on the dongle and Bluetooth, and I will display them all at once. So looking at the pulling rate tests of this controller, cable is going to be the best with 1000 Hz. It only gets up to about 870 though, with a average latency of about 1.15, a minimum of 0.5 on this test and 1 on that, and then a max of 3. Dongle is going to be the second option. 500 Hz gets about 490, pretty darn good. Average latency of about 2, with a minimum of 1 millisecond and a max of 4.5 on this test, but 4 on this one. Bluetooth is absolutely garbage. Do not use Bluetooth on this controller. The minimum latency is 10.5 milliseconds. That is so bad. Not to mention the average is 15.33 and then 12.15 on this test, with a maximum of 112 milliseconds. That is absolutely terrible. That's the worst I've seen on any controller probably ever. And then about 45 here, 65 Hz on this test and 80 Hz on this test. And then this one has a jitter of 13 milliseconds. That is absolutely atrocious. So the controller in this video is currently priced at about $60. The standard version is going for about $40, and the Pro Max version is going for $133. So I purchased this controller about a month ago for $60, and with shipping and tax and coupons and stuff, it was about $64. My final thoughts on this controller is to just avoid it at all costs. The only redeeming factor is how it looks. It looks pretty dope, and the fact that it has a decent rear pedal design. It's not super comfortable, but you can reach all of them at once while still having a decent grip on the controller. Everything about this controller feels cheap. The bumpers especially. The Hall Effect joysticks are so loose that they just drift everywhere. Like, these are the worst Hall Effect modules I've used on any controller by far. I would take potentiometer joysticks over these. I've seen a few reviews about the Razer Wolverine V3, and apparently that uses the same joysticks, so I wouldn't even consider that controller either, just because of how bad these are. And these use the same joysticks that other PowerA controllers use, like the OPS and the Fusion 4. I also wouldn't even take a look at those. I would take this one over all the other versions of this controller, but I still wouldn't take this one. $60 for this controller is just way too much. I would expect this to be $45, but unfortunately it's $60. I still wouldn't buy it at $40 because there's still better controllers at that price. My overall rating for this controller is, I'd give it like a 4. I'd give quality about a 2. Features wise, I'd give it a solid 8.5. And for price, I would give it about a 5. So there you go. That's pretty much all I have to say about this controller. If you absolutely want to buy it, I'll link it in the description. Please look at other controllers and other reviews. There are so many better options though. But if you absolutely like PowerA controllers, go for it. That's going to be pretty much it for this review. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.